What's up, everybody? Thanks again for joining me on this week's episode of In the Pink. And if you are not familiar with what that term means, that's a term coined way back in the 1500s, before pink was even a color, and it had to do with wishing somebody optimum health and happiness. So this week we are talking about gut health, and we are filling in that blank with sleep. But as always, I'm always gonna start out with a what we know. So my first what we know that statistics from about 2020 state that 14.5% of Americans have trouble falling asleep, and 17.8% of Americans have trouble staying asleep. And not only that, more than a third of Americans don't get more than 7 hours of sleep a night, when we know it's recommended that we get at least 7, preferably 8. And my next to what we know that this insufficient sleep is going to have a price associated with it in dollars, an economic impact to the tune of $411 billion annually in the United States. And that obviously includes lost wages, medications, anything that this insufficient sleep is going to be tied to. And my last what we know that the gut and the brain are connected. This gut-brain axis is a real deal, and it affects so many things, including sleep. And more studies done by more and more experts are confirming this close relationship. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the gut's role in all this. So first of all, let's tackle that gut-brain axis. A new study coming out of Japan is showing that the connection between our gut and our mind is so strong that it impacts our sleep on a nightly basis. And what this lead researcher is contributing that to is depletion of our gut microbiome, actually eliminating serotonin. And when we eliminate serotonin from the picture, we're gonna struggle with sleep. Now we know, and we always think of serotonin as being this happy neurotransmitter, and it is. But we also know that the serotonin level does affect our sleep-wake cycles in our bodies. So changing the microbial balance in our gut, which our diet affects, is going to change the serotonin production. And we know also that our sleep cycles are regulated by a number of factors that tell our body when it is actually time to sleep. So of course, our circadian rhythm plays into this, as well as even our meal times. So yes, changes in our diet are gonna affect this normal sleep cycle that we all possess. Okay, let's move on to the next point. Let's dive a little bit more into this diet piece. Okay, so we're gonna back it up just a bit. We know that a healthy microbiome is going to have neurotransmitters present. So not only the serotonin we're speaking of. When we think of sleep, you're probably thinking melatonin. And yes, that's also a neurotransmitter that's part of our gut, along with GABA and dopamine. They all play a role. And our diet plays a huge part in the levels of these neurotransmitters in our gut. So for example, let's talk on serotonin alone. We know that the majority of that is in our stomach and in our intestines, which of course is where gut health is so important. And we know the serotonin impacts the way we feel, the way we think, and honestly, the way we function. And now that we also know it's affecting circadian rhythms, it's gonna affect sleep. All right, so let's do a little case in point here. This study involves a group of mice. We've got equal amounts of identical mice. One group was fed water that was infused with broad spectrum antibiotics. The other group was just water, just plain water. And then after 30 days had passed, the researchers got in there and started looking at the specifics on the gut microbiome. So what had happened, obviously, is over this 30 days, the mice that were getting the antibiotic infused water and sipping on that had a depleted microbiome. Shocker. So of course, with the depleted microbiome, they're not able to produce the neurotransmitters that our body also needs to function. So here's what I want you to dial into. These mice did have plenty of tryptophan in their gut, but tryptophan is what is converted to serotonin, and that was not happening. And then after looking at some EEGs, which could track the mice's sleep patterns, they also find these mice had disruptions in the sleep. They were not sleeping as long, all the things that they needed to validate. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. Let's touch on the circadian rhythm business. Well, we already know circadian rhythms are crucial and central to our sleep patterns. You think of it as regulating your day and night clock. And it's these rhythms that help us fall asleep and help us stay asleep and help us wake up refreshed and ready for the day. And here's where it gets fascinating. There was a study done even back in 2018 that was determined to find out how this microbiome and how our circadian rhythms are connected. And according to that review, they actually found that microorganisms in and of themselves possess this circadian rhythm. So even the most prevalent microorganisms like Lactobacillus and Bacteroides species, those levels would fluctuate based on the time of day and even change in abundance from day to night. Is it just me, or isn't that fascinating? So as our gut bacteria even follow our circadian rhythms, they're gonna process these nutrients differently. So when we wake, when we eat, when we sleep, it's all affecting our body's internal clock. So when you have a shift in schedule, a shift in when you normally eat, any of these changes can disturb our gut bacteria, which we've already determined can affect sleep. So when you're not sleeping well, your gut's affected. And when your gut's affected, you're not sleeping well. It's circular in motion. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to drilling down to certain varieties of bacteria that can be responsible for this. So in this case, we're gonna look at a recent study done in 2022 on children less than 5 years of age. And these researchers were examining the role of the gut microbiome in sleep patterns among these kiddos. And what they found is, yes, specific bacteria do regulate sleep by modulating how our brain controls these chemical processes in our body, even down to our immune function. So the results come in and they find that kids with a higher concentration of bifidobacterium spent more time asleep. And not only that, they found that kiddos with higher concentrations of Bacteroides had a greater amount of sleep time compared to those who were struggling to get to sleep. And those kids also had less episodes throughout the night where they would wake up and then try to get back to sleep. Okay, let's move on to just a couple more quick studies wrapping up what we're talking about. Study done in 2019 definitely showed that the microbiome of those with good sleep patterns was extremely different than those who struggled in the sleep department. And a study in 2020 showed that animals who were fed a prebiotic diet had a much better sleep pattern than those animals that weren't getting prebiotic fibers. And once again, I will say gut health is a big, big deal. All right, let's move on to some healthy practices, some things we can be doing on a daily basis to improve our gut microbiome and improve our sleep patterns, among so many other things. We're gonna always start with diet. It's the easiest and an effective place to start. So optimize the food sources we have. I am talking whole foods that you get at the outside of your market. Stay away from processed foods as much as you can. Cut back on your sugar intake. Cut back on highly refined carbs. All these things are gonna help put your gut microbiome in a better place. Next one, load up on fermented foods. Kimchi, kefir, yogurt, apple cider vinegar. Not only will they improve your digestion, but they're gonna improve your gut microbiome and its diversity. Next thing, stress management. Easier said than done, I know. But we also know stress plays a huge, huge role in our health picture as a whole. So healthy stress management. Eat slowly, eat intentionally, stay hydrated. That is also crucial for our bodies to function properly. And limiting or eliminating substances like nicotine or alcohol, they are going to disrupt our gut microbiome. And the last thing, supplementation. Consider supplementation, because we are not going to get everything we need from our diets. So yes, I'm talking probiotics and prebiotics and fibers and even collagen, because it is going to help strengthen our gut lining, which is also a big, big deal. All right, let's get to the best part. Let's talk Plexus. Let's talk Plexus and how Plexus can play a role into your health game. Well, first and foremost, I'm always gonna pitch the Slim and the ProBio 5 and the BioCleanse, what we are calling the TRIPLEX. And it just so happens the microbiome activating Slim is got a prebiotic fiber in there to feed the probiotics that we plant with the ProBio 5, along with a great magnesium supplement, which our body desperately needs. And the next one, VITALBIOME, a premium probiotic with different strains of probiotics from the ProBio 5 to get into our gut and plant and thrive and give us fantastic diversity. And of course, I'd be amiss if I didn't talk about the new product called Sleep. And yes, it is a melatonin product, but is much more than that. And I will link the video in the comments so you can catch all the details on that one. And I'm also gonna throw in the greens, fermented fruits and vegetables. So if you are not getting it from your diet, this is where supplementation comes in, as well as the collagen product, a fantastic clean collagen that is not only great for cosmetic purposes, but it strengthens that gut lining. All right, you guys, that's all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for hanging with me till the very end. And if you are new to this Plexus train and you have no idea what I am talking about, I'm gonna list in that description box my link. Get on there, nose around, ask me some questions. Curiosity will get you on this train every time. I'm also gonna include some links in the description box, like I talked about, to videos I've done in the past, some of the products, some of the playlists we have going, and our current playlist will be right up here if you'd like to catch a few more episodes. And you just might want to join me here again next week, because what happens in the gut does not stay in the gut. It affects everything, which is going to lead into many more episodes of In the Pink.